In this video, it's about FM or frequency modulation synthesis inside of Bitwig Studio. And it's not only interesting for Bitwig Studio users. If you want to know why Bitwig is great for sound design or learning how sound synthesis works, this is the video for you. Because I show you how to apply FM in all kinds of different and unusual ways. And it all started with this post on Reddit here. I was wondering how can I FM into audio like this, and he linked to some kind of video where the producer used Ableton Live to LFO modulate a sample inside of a sampler. So basically FM frequency modulation in the sampler. So I replied here with some kind of brief answer, and he came back with, I would love to see a video of yours explaining this. So this is the video, and we start by using a sampler here, because this was the initial question. I remove all the default modulators here, and then we start with the test tone, and we just sample here a very simple sine wave. Just this one. Bounce, post fader, no dither. Okay, and then we put this into the sampler here. And to use frequency modulation, all we have to do now is to actually use an LFO here. LFO goes up to audio range, kilohertz, hertz. It also features here some time-based options, but we want to use here kilohertz. So let's say we have here 1 kilohertz and we want to modulate the frequency, right? So the first idea you have is probably to modulate the pitch. It sounds like this. Maybe put this on loop here. So this is exponential frequency modulation because we actually linear modulate the notes, and the notes relate to frequencies in kind of an exponential way. So when we modulate the notes, we get an exponential frequency modulation response, and it sounds very disharmonic. And it's not really usable for tonal sounds or when you want to play melodies or chords or something like this. It's more like something you want to use for percussion sounds, right? If we put this here, this amplitude envelope, make this very short. You get a very disharmonic sound out of this. So if you want to do percussions, then this is fine. If you want to do melodies and chords and real tonal sounds that relate to a key, that's not the way to go. So instead of modulating the pitch, we have no access to frequencies, right? Because we want to modulate the frequency in a linear way. And that's not possible. But what we can do is we can modulate the speed knob here. The speed knob actually changes the speed or the playback speed of the playhead inside of the sampler. And when we audio rate modulate the speed knob, we kind of simulate some phase modulation with that, because we disrupt the playhead, we disrupt the phase in a way. It sounds like this. I actually put this here back to you can hear we get overtones, but the pitch stays the same. It's still the same fundamental pitch, so we stay in key. So modulating the speed knob here with audio rate, very harmonic. Modulating the pitch knob, very disharmonic. Exponential FM, linear FM, or phase modulation simulated here by disrupting the playhead of the sampler. Works pretty well, actually. Okay, so the next problem we have is that we want to use different keys. And every time we use a different key, it sounds kind of off. And the problem is that the LFO is actually playing or modulating at the same fixed frequency, which is cool, but we want to stay in the same ratio. So if the frequency changes of the fundamental sampler here or sample, we also want to change the fundamental frequency of the modulator. So we do this by going to pitch mode here. So now we stay basically in pitch. The LFO frequency changes with the key change on the keyboard. Nice. So now we want to play multiple keys. So we have to put the LFO here into polyphonic mode so we can play it actually, yeah, multiple times at the same time. Still sounds a bit off because this here is not pitched to the right note. So right click, detect root key. So now the ratio fits basically. One time the frequency, one time the frequency. Now we can go up here to, let's say, 2 times the frequency or 3 times. So now we have a ratio 3 to 1. We can also dial down the amount of frequency modulation here with this knob. And then we can apply here ADSR curve, something short. It's also polyphonic, so we have this per note. And then we modulate here with this ADSR the amount. Now it sounds like this. Right, we have only in the attack phase of the sound this frequency modulation, so we have this typical FM, yeah, piano sound. You can also create here some kind of belt sounds by going higher. You can also apply here an expression modulator where we get the velocity, so how hard we press the key on the keyboard. And with this, we change the ADSR modulation amount here. We go down to 0, and then we apply here the velocity to it. So the pressure we apply to keys on the keyboard change the amount the ADSR modulates the modulation amount of the LFO, modulating the speed knob. So if I press soft, I get only a sine wave, and the harder I press, the more overtones I get, right? I can also use the velocity here to change actually the decay time of the ADSR. Yeah, put the reverb on that, let's see. So we get this typical FM piano bell sound out of the sampler. So we transform the sampler basically into an FM synthesizer, kind of. Instead of using now here this LFO, we can also replace this with, let's say, a wavetable LFO. It works in the same way. We put this here into pitch mode, but now we have a wavetable, so we can change here the wave shape from a sine to a saw. And it sounds kind of different. So let's apply here modulation to that, pull this down, and then use the ADSR for the amount. Let's go to 3 here. So each key now gets a different... Oh, we have to put this in the polyphonic mode, yeah. Sorry. So each key gets its own wavetable LFO with the right frequency and so on. We can also now apply here a random modulator and put this into hold mode and note. So every time we trigger a note, we get a different random value for each voice because it's polyphonic mode. And then we apply this here to the index. So each key gets a different index in the wavetable LFO, right? can see this here, the graph. Each key gets a random position in the wavetable. You can also choose your very complex wave shape. So everything is possible. Instead of using a wavetable LFO, we can also rely on, let's say, feedback. So if you maybe remember the FM8 here, let's go to FM8, has in the matrix some kind of feedback setting. So you have all the operators or oscillators here, and then you can, instead of, frequency modulate your F with E, you can also say F should modulate itself with feedback. Something like this, right? You get a lot of noise then, but it kind of works. So you have feedback modulation. You can also do something like this here on the sampler with the audio rate modulator, and then grab the output of the sampler and put it back into the front with the modulator here. So we go here back to the output of the sampler. Maybe call this here sampler. Sampler out. Okay. You get here the output of this in front of that as modulation signal. And then you can apply this here to the speed knob. So what here happens is basically we create a lot of overtones by modulating the sine wave. These overtones go back into the audio rate modulator, add more overtones, and so on. And because of this feedback, you get a lot of noise pretty fast. And because people, or the developers of Bitwig Studio are actually smart, they know that if you use audio rate, you use probably complex signals to modulate something. So they added here some low pass to it. So you can cut out some overtones of the modulating signal to only stick with some lower frequencies. So yeah, this is feedback modulation basically inside of the sampler with just a simple sine wave here. We can also do some very unusual things with the delay. We modulated the speed knob, which kind of disrupts the playback or the playhead. We can also play around here with the delay. And just let's delay this here by just a 1/16 note and then use here an LFO on that. Use kilohertz here, or maybe pitch, and then modulate here the offset. It gives you some similar results sometimes. Needs more. Maybe modulate here the time directly. Let me see. There's the pitch here. It gives you also sometimes these typical overtones, but it works much better inside of Grid. I'll show you this in a minute. So you can also modulate the delay times here, or audio rate modulate delay times, and it gets you also this kind of phase modulation thing. So sometimes if you have some audio streams where you don't have access to the frequencies, you can just, frequency modulate them by using one signal and modulating the delay offset of the other. It's also some kind of phase modulation. So this is the delay here. Then we can do something like, let's say we put here a reverb on that and we create some kind of signal with this. So I'm using Supermassive here again. And then I'm using here again an LFO. Put this into pitch mode. Go to 7. I want to have some kind of bell sound. Modulate here the speed. So I make this pet sound here and I bounce this. Bounce, bam. And then we put this here into, let's say, a layer by using Control and G. And we put this sample here, actually this one, on the second layer. Okay, we have the initial sine wave here, sine partial on the first sampler. Second sampler here, we have this pet sound. So now we can mute the second one here and use this as a modulator inside of the first one by just using here an audio rate. And then calling this here maybe modulator. And then grabbing this here, instrument, chains, modulator pre. Okay, so now I play. I get here the signal from the second layer. And then I can use this. Maybe put this here on loop. Use this to modulate the speed knob. Maybe increase the amplitude. And because the second one here also receives the keys, it stays basically in the same pitch. The only drawback of this is it's not polyphonic, because when you play multiple keys, the output of this sampler here mixes basically with multiple keys. You have like one note and then the other note, and then it becomes just one audio signal. And then you feed this audio signal here to each voice when you play multiple keys. So it mixes basically up the voices. It's not like Bitwig knows exactly, oh, this voice is this audio signal that goes to this voice on this sampler. So it doesn't work in this kind of setup here, right? Just so you know it. But what we can do is we can put this into a grid, and inside of the grid we can completely build our own monophonic patch and then make it polyphonic. So use a polygrid here. There's the polygrid, here it is. Inside the polygrid we can use here this bounced sample, right? And then we use here our first simple sine, and then we use an AD here and output. And then we enable here our keyboard, put this on. Okay, and then we can use here a modulator out. We can use the audio signal and just modulate the speed knob. Maybe also put this here on loop. And then we can put the polygrid into polyphonic mode here, 12 voices. And then we can play multiple voices of this. And we can say we want to put this here maybe 1 octave higher, so it's a ratio 2 to 1. If you don't want to use the pitch knob for that, you can use the pitch in here, disable this and use a ratio in front of that. So you can say here, this is now ratio 4 to 1 or 7 to 1. Right? If you don't want to modulate this all the time, you can use an AD here in front of that. And now we basically only have in the attack phase. Nice. Supermassive on that. Let's play this a bit lower. Okay, so this kind of works. Instead of modulating the speed knob here, like I said, we can also use the delay. So put the delay on the end here, then just modulate this. It's maybe too much. So let's reduce here the amplitude of the second one. And because this is just in one patch inside of the grid, we can multiply the voices and have perfect distinction between the voices, so you can apply also delay on each voice. So this is how you do it basically inside of the grid, where you use here one sampler and modulate the other sampler, the speed or the delay. You can also do this here with exponential, of course, exponential modulation. So instead of the delay here, we go directly here into the pitch of this. Which is not really great, but maybe for, you know, for purposes for sound design, it's probably nice. Also, we have a dedicated, exponential FM oscillator in here, which is this one here called Byte. So here with this one, we have basically two oscillators here. The first one is a sine, the second one is also sine, and the second oscillator is offset by 17 semitones. This is 0. And then we only want to play the second oscillator here, and then we modulate the second one with the first one exponentially. It sounds like this. It's also great for percussion sounds. It's not really great because you can't change here the offset for the first oscillator inside of this here. But I think it's great for what it is. I mean, it's not made for being an all-around FM kind of sound, type of sound. But it's a nice oscillator you can still use. But I want to give you basically here this idea that's actually an exponential FM synthesizer in here, hidden kind of. Then we have here the phase 1. You can also do something like I showed you with the feedback, right? You have this feedback knob here, and you can basically phase modulate its own output. You can add some formants. So this is basically the oscillator of the phase 4. You can use this here to phase modulate the second one and then get some nice tones out of it. So it's also kind of an FM type FM sound, type of sound with this phase 1 here, where you have this feedback knob and you can use multiple of these oscillators and then just phase modulate them. You also can use here exponential FM by just using the pitch input, of course, if you want to. Again, highly disharmonic. If you like this kind of sound, then it's probably for you. You can also do some kind of FM by using a filter, using an let's say low pass here, and it's probably more interesting by using here a complex waveform sawtooth, and then modulating this here. It's kind of exponential FMing here, this low pass filter. Gives you also sometimes some interesting sounds. Also some kind of watery, wet kind of sounds. Probably nice for psytrance or whatever. Yeah, whatever. Sounds like a formant filter. Reminds me a bit of Daft Punk, but yeah, whatever. So you can also frequency modulate the filters and you get some kind of FM sound out of this. So I just want to show you this basically here to make this kind of complete. There are probably also a lot of different other ways, like I said, with modulating the delay time. So if you have multiple audio streams, you know, just one track here, and then you have another track playing some music, and then you just choose one track and feed it into the other track and use an audio rate modulator to change the delay time, or more like mess with the phase. And then you get also some kind of live frequency modulation in a way. Okay, I think that's it. There are probably some more ways I have forgotten, but maybe it's enough for this video. I mean, it's already 28 minutes. So that's it. If you have some questions, please leave the questions down in the comments. Leave a like if you like the video, of course. Thanks for watching, and yeah, keep asking questions. Thanks for watching, and bye.